Welcome in. I'll give everyone a minute just to get settled. But thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to chat a little bit about the undeclared experience here at Chapman. So please do feel free to ask any questions that you have as we're going through everything. We have the chat open, so please feel free to use that chat and just throw any questions there. James and I will keep an eye on that as well as we're going through the presentation, and then also have a Q&A at the end. So know that you can utilize that feature as well. Um, but just to get us started, my name is Steele Viverette. I'm one of our undergraduate admission counselors here at Chapman. I am also a Panther alum myself, so I graduated from Chapman a few years ago, but I entered as an undeclared student. So undeclared students have a very special place in my heart. I kind of came in and chose a bunch of different pathways, ended up with a double major in political science and global communication. But I took advantage of a lot of those undeclared resources that we have. So I'm excited to chat with you guys about what my process looked like and what that process looks like here at Chapman in general. And then James is also here joining us from academic advising. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, my name is James Maddock. I'm a senior academic advisor here at Chapman. I've been here for about 9 years now. Primarily worked with business students. Prior to the last couple of years, we switched over to this exploratory or undeclared student population. So I've been doing a lot of programming for those students. I was also formally undeclared myself. I'm not an alumni of Chapman. I went to Cal State Long Beach. But there's a reason why I work at a school like this, because this is where I wish I had gone. And so, yeah, definitely here to promote that college experience that Chapman offers and share with you, all the different resources and ways to be successful here.
Cool. Well, while James is pulling up the slides, I will go ahead and get us started. What we're going to chat about today is I'll start a little bit with just an admission overview, really focusing particularly on what it looks like for undeclared students through that admission process. So that's kind of where we'll start. Then we'll go into some more information about academic advising and what that looks like, what resources are available to our students here at Chapman. And then we'll have, like I mentioned, that time at the end for questions as well. So feel free to save any questions for then. And of course, again, feel free to use them in the chat as well. But if we can move forward, I'll go ahead and just chat a little bit about what our academic overview looks like for our incoming fall class, which will be on that next slide. So last year we had about 16,000 applications come in. Of that, our third largest population is our undeclared students. It's also our third largest population of students incoming here to Chapman. So the number one thing I always like to start off with is that you are not alone if you are undecided as you're coming into college. There are tons of students who are in that same boat with you. It is our third largest major, so to speak. So you have a huge population of students who are also not fully sure what they want to do, or maybe you have an idea, and that's where that exploratory pathway comes into, where you can kind of focus on a specific area, but not a declared major yet. And James will chat a little bit about what that looks like. But know you have a huge support system here at Chapman. There are tons of students who are coming in that same exact kind of route as you. So that's one of the first kind of myths that I like to dispel right away is not everyone has it figured out. There are plenty of students who are also figuring out what they want to study. There's also so many students who switch what they want to study once they get here. So know that you are very much not alone. In terms of just an overview of what our incoming class looks like, last year we brought in about 18,000 students. So there's a big population of students coming in. Again, about 8.3% of those students are undeclared. And that's just first year students as well. That doesn't include about 300 transfer students. Our average GPA is about a 3.83 for our admitted students. And then in terms of representation, we have 49 states represented in our class or our incoming class this past year. We do have all 50 states represented on campus. I was an out-of-state student myself. I grew up in Virginia, so out-of-state students are also a very kind of special population that I love working with. But hopefully, as a Chapman student, you'll meet someone from every state and also from countries across the world. Last year, we had 81 countries represented in our pool, and currently on campus, we have over 86 different countries represented. About 76% of our students also applied test optional, meaning they did not submit test scores. So know that that is not a huge piece of the review process. You do not have to submit test scores here at Chapman. You are absolutely welcome to, but it will never hurt you not to submit those scores. On the next slide is a bit more of an overview of what we're looking for when we're looking at applications. So we are very lucky to review very holistically when it comes to your application here at Chapman. We have no GPA benchmarks or cutoffs. You don't have to have a specific GPA to get in or to qualify for scholarship. We will really look at everything. And I'd like to talk about that, especially in the context of our undeclared students, because I do also feel like there's sometimes a stigma that if you're applying undeclared, that could hurt your admission chances. That's definitely not the case. It will never harm you in terms of your admission decision to apply undeclared. In fact, we love when students apply undeclared because it really shows us that you're taking the time and you're kind of not just prematurely picking something that you might not actually be interested in. We like when students kind of take that step back and say, here's what I might be interested in, but I'm not ready to commit. And that is totally fine. We encourage that exploration here at Chapman. We also encourage you to be interdisciplinary once you do get here. So even once you do pick that major, we still want you studying multiple different subjects. We have a general ed program that will take you through a bunch of different colleges on our campus. So you're not going to be stuck with that one single subject that you're coming in for. So that's another reason why undeclared students don't fall behind at all, is because as you're doing that exploration, you're fulfilling those general ed requirements as well. So from that admission standpoint, know that it will not hurt you to apply undeclared. The one caveat I say with that is for our performance majors or our film school, that is where it can be a little bit more difficult. It's pretty hard for students to transfer into one of our film programs or our performing art programs like theater or dance. So if that is the area that you're interested in, I usually recommend applying directly into that area versus applying undeclared. Because it is so hard just to transfer into those programs here, we don't want you to get here and then be disappointed that you're not able to study what you really want to study if it is one of those film or performing arts programs. So no, that is the exception. If you're interested in those programs, apply directly into them. Otherwise, there is a lot of room to kind of pick and choose what you want to do once you get here. It's pretty easy to switch into a lot of our majors. With that application, we will look at that area of study for our undeclared students. That gives them the opportunity to talk about what they might be interested in. So you have that section that will ask you to respond, why did you choose undeclared and what areas are you interested in? That's your opportunity on the application to give us that context of what you think you might want to study. The community impact piece of the application is also huge and another way to show us what you might be interested in despite applying undeclared and give us a sense of kind of who you are and what you're passionate about. And lastly, that Chapman Fit piece is still essential for us. We want to make sure that you're coming to a campus where you can thrive. If you're looking for a huge campus environment, that this might not be the best fit for you. But if you're looking for a campus where you get that personalized education, where you get to be very interdisciplinary and you have a lot of flexibility to explore, this could definitely be a good fit. And I think applying undeclared could also be a really good fit. So that's really all I have to share from the admission side of things. But I'll go ahead and pass it over to James to chat a little bit more about the academic advising resources that we have and what that looks like for students once they do get here as a Chapman student.
All right, thanks, Steele. So yeah, just to reiterate, my name is James Maddock. I'm the academic advisor for students that are undeclared or what we might call exploratory or undecided, right? So I will be the personal one-on-one person to meet with and kind of go all over all your degree requirements and then potentially help you find a major and or minor. All right, so yeah, so again, kind of some of the stuff Steele already mentioned, so but we want to reiterate some of the stuff because it's important for you to kind of understand what it looks like at Chapman, right? So we're really having the opportunity to explore, right? That's why you might be referred to as exploratory, your opportunities, right? So you're not just pigeonholed into a major. Sometimes students, pick a major and they're not sure what it is, and they wish they had taken a step back and been coming undeclared or undecided, and so we'll talk about that as well. Some of the same numbers and stats, right? Again, just reiterating the fact that we do have a lot of students that not you're just not on your own, right? 20% of students nationwide are undeclared or undecided, right? About 80% of students, almost every student will just at least change their major once, right? Or maybe that same 80%, even if they choose their major, they might not be sure that's the major they want, right? Again, they might be like, oh, I want to go into business because that's what my dad did, or my friends are all going into medical experience, and so I'm going to do that, right? They don't really know what that is, or they're not certain about it, or even if they are certain that's what they want to do, they don't really know what the career outlook might be, right? And again, right, numbers there at the bottom. So every year, we get about 200, 250 undeclared first year students coming in. And so again, that's the student population I work with. And at some point, I'll turn you over to a major advisor. Um, and yeah, you'll never see me again. But all right, a little bit more. So yeah, again, different types of students. So I always kind of see undeclared as like a spectrum. So there's like students that are truly undeclared, they have no idea what they want to do, versus students that know exactly what they want to do. They're just not technically in that major yet. So, like our business school is a good example of that. Our College of Business, there's a lot of students that want to be business, and they're just not technically in the major, but they're basically taking those classes for that major, right? So again, you could see the difference between that type of undeclared student versus someone that has no idea what they want to do, right? And like I said, it's a spectrum. So sometimes there's students that are in the middle, and they're like, I think I want to do this. I'm just not sure. I'm trying to decide between these two things, right? And then there's the students that think they know what they want to do, and they take one semester of classes and realize, nope, that's not what I want to do. And they go all the way back to like, I have no idea, starting over, right? So you can see there's not every student's the same situation, and that's important for me to understand. So I'm not giving you all the same kind of general advisement, right? Every situation is going to be different. And that's, again, I mentioned before, I work primarily with business students, and now I'm doing with the undeclared. And that's because I enjoy like trying to help students figure things out, not just having the same appointment over and over, right? We want to be intentional and help you make the best, put yourself in the best spot to be successful and to graduate on time. That's a huge thing I advocate for. I know Chapman tuition prices, right? And so we definitely want to make sure students are graduating on a timely manner. Okay, so a little bit more about how we help students decide to choose, right? You actually don't have to choose until you're like 60 credits in. You don't have to declare a major or a minor until you're 60, basically a junior, right? So you have plenty of time to decide. However, some of the majors we do have, especially like the STEM side, like science, tech, engineering, math, those majors are pretty big. We want you to hopefully decide those within a year. But again, every situation is a little different. Sometimes students just aren't in a hurry. Sometimes they don't care about graduating in 4 years. It just depends on the situation, right? Um, but yeah, so how do I help you, or how do you help yourself kind of figure these things out, right? A lot of it is just using the resources here at Chapman. So whether it be me, or things like the Career and Professional Development Office, joining clubs and organizations. We'll talk a little bit more about those details, but again, the first step is kind of trying to find those interests and strengths that you might be enjoy, or you might be good at, right? So you might have all taken those like things, those tests in high school, or it's like you take this test and it tells you what jobs you'd be good at, right? So Chapman has those similar types of things with our Career and Professional Development Office, except a lot more in depth. It's more sitting down one-on-one and analyzing what those interests and strengths are and what those pair up with, right? Um, it could be things like, you're interested in like film, so you join the film club, right? Or whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden you're meeting people that are in the film major, and then like, okay, this is a good fit for me, or I like this as a hobby, but I don't think I could do this as a career, right? So again, finding those interests and strengths can be a big part of it. Um, right? And then discovering majors and careers, right? Obviously, a big part of going to college, right, is getting that degree, and most people get the degree so they can make a career out of it, right? And that's an important thing to realize. It's not always what you know, but sometimes it's who you know, right? So it doesn't always matter if your degree matches up exactly with what your job is, right? There's a lot of times where students will have various degrees and they can still get jobs in various fields, right? Again, you still want to put yourself in the best possible situation, but that's something, right? Like I said, our Career and Professional Development Office is really good at. And most major colleges and those departments have like a specific career advisor within that college too. So that again, kind of goes back to that mindset of matching students up with the majors with careers, right? So again, there's kind of a spectrum on that as well that I see. So a lot of times students will, at some point figure out, this is what I'd like to do. This is the jobs I'd like to do. How do I get to those jobs? What degrees do I need to get to those jobs, right? Or the other end of the spectrum might be, this is what I'd like to study. I know I want to study this. If I study this, what kind of jobs can I get, right? So again, you could see it goes back to the idea that not every situation is going to be the identical, there can be a variance between it. And again, that's part of our role in helping you, whether it be myself or other resources, help you kind of figure things out. And the third piece is that self-reflection and maturation, right? A lot of it is, um, I know for myself, like I was kind of almost prideful. I was like, I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want people to think I was dumb. I didn't know what to do, right? So it's part of like me reflecting and trying to figure out what I want to do and becoming more mature and realizing, okay, it's okay to ask for help. That's what all these resources are here for. That's part of that college experience is asking for help and learning, right? It's hard to do things on your own. And even if it's not hard to do them on your own, it's just a lot easier to do it with that assistance, right? Again, there's all these pieces that have been put in place for all the students here on campus to help them make those decisions and figure things out, right? And again, sometimes it just takes time, like for myself, um, I didn't think about working in higher education until I had a part-time job. I just found a part-time job on campus, and my colleagues were my coworkers were in the grad program for counseling. They're like, "Oh, you should totally do it." And I'm like, "Oh, I hate school. Why would I come back for grad school?" But that's what I ended up, it's what I love doing. And so I ended up going back and doing that, right? So again, sometimes it's just maturing and realizing, okay, this is what I really want to do, or okay, school's not that bad. School's actually fun, right? And for most people, I think it is. I just think it's hard sometimes when you're can't find a major, it's hard to find things that you're interested in to that extent, right? It's very difficult. Again, I'm speaking from my own experience. It's very difficult for taking classes for majors that you might not be interested in, right? And that goes back to our original point why a lot of students will change their majors because they start taking these classes and they're like, this isn't what I thought it would be. And they just lose interest. And then it becomes very difficult to make that connection. So again, that's another reason why it's important to maybe start as undeclared and take your time to kind of figure things out. And again, like 60 credits, halfway done, right? You have plenty of time to figure things out. And we make sure that you understand what that timeline looks like. Most first year students only take GE classes anyway. So sometimes students come in and they're like trying to feel like they have to catch up, and that's usually not even the case. And I was a transfer student myself, transferred from a community college to a 4 year university. So I know that timeline can be different too, where it's like, okay, I just want to, that was my thing. Like I said, I just wanted to graduate as soon as possible. And again, not taking that time to realize the opportunity that I had and utilizing those resources. But again, all these, a lot of things, again, a lot of those things come into a factor for choosing a major. Okay, so as you can see, we offer plenty of different options, over 60 majors, divided into 9 different colleges, right? So yeah, arts and humanities, that's our Wilkinson College. Things like, art history, Spanish, um, peace studies, right? All these different opportunities within the arts and humanities to major and minor in. A lot of our minors are even really unique as well. Educational studies, if you wanted to go into teaching or community education, health and behavioral sciences or psychology or health sciences, right? Business and econ, that's our biggest major here on campus, a business admin degree. A lot of students, like I said, they don't really know what that means, or they just do it because it's a broad degree, but it's a highly renowned program. So it's definitely encouraged a lot of students to look into it and see what that looks like, right? And I always tell students too, like having a business degree from Chapman might be different than a business degree that their friend or family member might have from another school. So another reason to not just pick something, to actually spend time looking into it. Our Fowler School of Engineering, right, like computer science and analytics and all that fun STEM stuff. Performing arts are again, there's the one Steele mentioned before, kind of uh, performing arts and our film and media arts Dodge School. These are ones that might be a little bit more of a challenge to get into, but there are some opportunities potentially. And so, again, kind of encourage you all to look into that prior if that's what you're expecting to move into, because it's not, those are ones that, again, not always easy to jump into. School of Com, we have our strategic communication and our communication and our world languages communication program. And then science and tech, that's like your biology, math, chemistry. A lot of times students are kind of doing like pre-med programs and things like that. We have pathways for those, graduate programs as well. Okay, so again, lots of opportunities. Not this is where it comes down to. It's not easy to make a decision, right? There's almost overwhelming, too many things to decide from. And again, that's part of my role to help narrow things down and make it a lot easier for you to kind of make decisions. Okay. So a little bit more specifics, the details on those majors, right? They range from 30 to 80 credits. Like I mentioned before, most of the majors you don't need to jump into right away, but there are some of those 80, 70 credit majors within STEM or some of the performing arts and things like that that do need to kind of get started on sooner than later. You can actually count some credits for both the major and the GE. So there's a general education requirement, obviously. Um, and those are like your kind of same, science, math, English, critical thinking type classes that you maybe, we're taking about now at the college level, right? And so again, sometimes you can share classes. So an example with that would be like if you're a business student, you could do your business math class, and that math class will count as your math GE requirement, as well as your business math requirement. So just, we want to make sure you're, again, being intentional about the classes you take and not wasting your time and making sure you're not repeating courses. So again, that's part of our role to help you understand that and find options for you. As Still mentioned too, again, like we mentioned, right? Like some of these classes you can't, some of these majors and minors, you can't just jump into. There might be applications or GPA requirements. So again, I won't read every single one, but you can see that there are a few different requirements in order to jump into those programs. And at the end of the day, there's resources for you to contact somebody over at that, right? You can contact somebody over at the School of Com and be like, okay, what does this application look like? And how do I do this? And what are my chances of getting in? You can kind of get some of that feedback from them as well. Okay, so again, but most of the programs here, you don't have to do that. But again, as you can imagine, some of the more popular ones, we are a small school. They want to keep the classroom sizes small. So that's kind of the logic there. Okay, how can you explore the classes that you have here at Chapman, right, for an exploratory or undeclared student, right? So we have our exploratory course list, and we update this. The screenshot here is from 2018, so that's an older version, but it's just an example, right? So we update this every year, and we basically, what I do is I reach out to all these departments and I speak to them and say, hey, if we have exploratory students, what classes would you recommend they take if they're interested in your major, right? So this is a great way to like look at all your options and look at specific classes, right? Instead of just hearing these broad titles, these broad major names. What does those majors look like? What do those classes look like? What are opportunities for you, right? You probably can't see it because it's super small, but some of them do have asterisks, and usually those asterisks mean you can't just jump into those classes, or there might be a prerequisite, a class you have to take prior, or you might need instructor's approval. So again, it kind of goes back to some of those programs that you do need to apply for is kind of the mindset there, right? So, but again, the fact that they're giving us a list of classes from those majors does show that there's opportunities potentially to get into those classes, right? So again, we don't want to give students false hope, but we do want to show them all their options and what might be opportunities for them. Okay. And again, we don't expect you to memorize all this stuff, especially a list like this. It's available online, it's updated, and you can run through, meet with me and we could talk about specific options and what those classes look like and get more detailed course descriptions and stuff. So we also do exploratory pathways. So this will kind of, it's optional. You don't have to pick a pathway, or you can create your own pathway, so to speak. But what these pathways are basically help, the advising team to help get you off on the right foot, right? So these pathways might be something like, I'm interested in business and marketing, so we have a pathway for that. Or I'm interested in the arts and entertainment, we have a pathway for that. And so again, you're not committed to these pathways. It doesn't determine, A through Z for you, but it does help us on the advising side to kind of, we do pre-enroll you into classes your first semester and help you kind of make that transition. Or if you don't have any pre-enrolled classes, at least set you up for us to understand where you're coming from and what classes you might be interested in, what careers you might be interested in, right? Again, it's just kind of like a very similar, maybe like your application process, so that when the admissions read that, they get a better understanding of you. It's the same thing on our end. And again, also, I think it also puts you in the mindset of, okay, this is the pathway I'm going to start down. Let me see where this turns out and how it goes, right? We do have our early arrival program for students that are admitted and they come in the fall. So you'll actually move in we've done this for, I don't want to speak too soon, but we've done this for 2 years in a row. I don't see why we wouldn't do it again. But we do have this, you arrive like a weekend earlier. You get to move in before everybody else. You get to meet everybody within your undeclared community, right? We always talk to students and they always say like, the first question everybody asks on campus is like, what's your major and where are you from, right? And so then they're already, maybe feel ostracized because they don't have a major and everybody else is talking about their major. Or they might have major events, right? Like the school business is putting on this event, Fowler's putting on this event. Like, okay, how come Undeclared doesn't have any events, right? So this community allows, this is our event, right? And it allows you to start making those connections earlier and meet other students that don't have it figured out quite yet, right? Right. And like I mentioned before, yeah, there's opportunity to create to meet with myself prior and create what we would call like a custom pathway. And again, just kind of, um, providing us with that opportunity to kind of put you off on the right foot. It's always hard to be, I've never met, right? Not meeting you guys before you come in, right? So I don't know, I remember we did a science pathway and I'm like, okay, does this student interested in like engineering science, or are they interested in, uh, biology, right? You know what I mean? So again, right, you can see there's a big difference there, even within the sciences, right? So again, having the opportunity to talk that through and get more specific in the details can kind of put you off on the right foot to make sure we get you in the right classes your first semester and the second semester as well. So yeah, and I was talking briefly about the pathways, but here they are laid out for you. Again, arts and entertainment, business and industry, education, humanities, government, STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math. Um, and then the other side of STEM, the biology, chemistry, and health science version. And then, like I said, custom pathways. So again, this is just again, nothing you're tied to. It's just to kind of get the ball rolling and help us as advisors kind of get you off on the right foot. Okay, so what will you take your first year? So most students are taking GEs. I mentioned this briefly before. Like again, even students that have like the business major, our biggest major here on campus, most popular major, and they're like taking 1 or 2 business classes and the rest are GEs. And that's what it's like the first year. It's not just the first semester. Usually most students, like, you're taking GEs your first year, and it's not so. A lot of times students are thinking, oh, I just got to get my GEs out of the way. That's not true either. You can save plenty of times we see students save GEs for senior year, just to break things down, right? So again, there's a balance, right? So again, we'll put you in potentially recommended first year courses based off your pathway you choose, or based off a custom pathway, or just based off any feedback we might receive. And again, we do offer advising for registration when that time comes, one-on-one meetings with myself or another advisor. Again, we definitely, again, like I said at kind of the beginning, right, coming to a school like this provides you with that personalized opportunity. And I still mentioned it as well. Like, this is not a big campus, right? There's a reason it's a small campus, because we want that personalized support for students, and we don't want to be like, oh, we don't want you to be one of thousands, right? Like I said, like I did exploratory students, about 200 each semester. So it's me working with 200 students is very manageable, plenty of time. I'm always making time. So even when students are emailing me last minute and my appointments are all booked up, I will get on a Zoom call or tell you to stop by the office at 4:15 because I have a break between 4:15 and 4:30, and we'll work it out, right? Yeah. So we'll figure out a way to connect, and make sure you're on the right path. Okay, I talked briefly about our GE program, but again, general education program. So we have our first year foundation course. So every first year or freshman student will take this class. It's just like a kind of a unique class that kind of gets you the looking at what a college level class looks like, whether it be like critical thinking, working in groups, doing speeches in front of class, right? Just kind of giving you those core foundation experience for college level classes, right? Then you have your liberal arts, again, as I mentioned this before, like maybe the classes you took at high school, but now they're at the college level, right? English, art, science, math, social, right? And then we have our global focus. We want our students to be global facing. So we have our global study requirement, which is 2 classes or 6 credits. If you study abroad a full semester, that global study, the 6 credits are waived. Checked off your requirements. We have our citizen community service, and then our foreign language study. And then again, you could see most of these are just going to be 1 class outside the global study, which is 2. And then the language one could potentially be, depending on where you place into your foreign language, depending, that could be 1 class, it could be 2, it could be potentially 3. So that just depends. And then the last portion is we have this exploration focus, which is every student at Chapman outside their major. So once you do find a major, we do require students to either choose a second major, which usually doesn't happen too often, but that is an option. A minor kind of works out mathematically to meet all your requirements, or a themed inquiry. So a themed inquiry is like a smaller version of a minor. And that, again, I didn't go to Chapman, but I did something similar to themed inquiry. I was so hard for me to find a major. I had trouble just finding a major. I was kind of stressed out to try to find a minor or a second major. So I did something similar to themed inquiry. But again, my role is to let you know all these options when the time comes. And so that way you don't have to worry about it today, right? This is all stuff that we just want you to be aware of And when the time comes, we're going to reiterate all this information and make sure you understand A through Z what you need to do to graduate on time. Okay. Okay. So again, what does advising look like at Chapman? So I'm the specific advisor for Undeclared. I'm the only one at this point, because again, not a ton of undeclared students. So, I can handle a caseload of 200 students or so. But I go over GE questions, general education, make sure you understand that. Your program eval, which is like a checklist of all the requirements that you need to graduate. Like I said, A through Z, I make sure you understand that. We have our academic policies, like all the rules and regulations. I make sure you understand that. Or if you have questions, you're like, hey, I heard about this. How does this work? Or what are my options? I'm going to go over those things with you. And then, yeah, eventually understanding what the degree looks like. So it's kind of, I look at my role as helping you understand the blueprint. And then I will eventually turn you over to your college specific advisors. So maybe you end up doing something like, um, within Schmid College, I would turn you on to our advisor over there at Patsy, and she would then show you what major requirements you have to do, right? And again, a lot more detailed once you figure out the major. I can show you what major requirements you need to do, but once you're with that advisor specifically within that college, they'll let you know when those classes are offered, or what's a good strategy, what sequence you take those things in, if there's any internship opportunities, their career advising team, right? All those again are major specific, any like course substitution, availability, um, anything like again outside the box when you start coming to more specific stuff within the college, right? So again, I see you all in the beginning, and then once you figure out a major, I turn you over, and maybe I'll see you at graduation. But yeah, but that's it for my portion, and now we can turn it over to questions and answer.
Thanks, James. Yeah, I do want to open the floor. So if anyone has any questions whatsoever, we are happy to answer them. So feel free to use that chat if you want. You can even unmute yourself if you prefer, but happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. I know it can always be hard to be the first one to ask a question, so I'll give you guys a second. One other thing I did just want to chat about was kind of my experience as an undeclared student and some of the resources that I took advantage of. Outside of advising, we also do a program called Majors in Minutes that I'm a huge fan of. It's where basically they set up a bunch of tables in our piazza, so right in the middle of campus. Or it might be in Beckman now. I don't know the physical location anymore, but when I was a student, it was in the piazza. So we set up a bunch of tables, and then you get to go, and there's a student in every single major that you get to chat with and see what their experience has been like. So that was a really cool event that I went to as an undeclared student to help me kind of gauge what opportunities I had and get some of my questions answered. But then also I did it on the flip end when I was a senior, and I sat there and talked about my majors in global comm and political science. So I got to kind of see both ends of it, and it's a really cool program that I'm a huge fan of. Um, and then we are also housed with other undeclared students, so that's really helpful, just being able to have that kind of sense of community as well. We have some questions coming through. Thank you, guys. If you applied EA and undecided, is it too late to email admissions about switching into a major in Dodge? No, it is definitely not too late, and I definitely recommend reaching out to your counselor, especially if you are interested in one of those Dodge or performing arts majors, because those are ones that we definitely want you to get ahead of on that front end of things so you can get all the requirements ready for it. I would definitely recommend reaching out to your specific admission counselor. If you do not know who that person is, you can always email admit@chapman.edu, or you can go to our website and just look up Meet Your Counselor, and you'll be able to put in your high school and figure out who that person is as well. So definitely feel free to email us an admission if you have made up your mind and you're ready, regardless of whether it is one of those talent majors or any major. If you would like to switch your major, then you can definitely just email us. We do not have marine biology specifically. We do have biology, we have environmental science, we have biochem, so adjacent majors, but not a specific marine biology major. How often do major courses get oversubscribed, and how is that dealt with? James, I'll let you chat about this one because I think you'll know better than me.
I'm not sure what they mean by over subscribed. Does that mean um Does that mean there's too many, are they referring to too many students enrolled in those courses?
I believe so.
They want to clarify, Sarah, if you want to clarify, go for it. But yeah, so um, yeah, okay, cool. Just want to make sure. Um, yeah, so I think I can't speak for every department, but I know that the overall consensus is ideally in a perfect world, they do want to, if there's a bunch of students on the way, like if a class only has 20 seats, right? Again, we want to keep the classroom size small and they have like 20 people on the wait list. Maybe they'll open up a new class, right? Can't speak every department. Every department doesn't have the luxury to do that, but that would be the goal for most departments, or at least their mindset, right? And so yeah, and they're usually aware. They're pretty good. Again, it depends on the department. I'm thinking from the business perspective, which is one of the priorities here on campus, right? That's what I saw the most for the last 7 years. Um, and so they were always willing to open up a new section. Sometimes they can't always find an instructor, so sometimes it's not even the money, or maybe they don't have the space, or maybe they don't have the instructor. So those things do come into play, but they're pretty good at kind of gauging how many students are going to need that class and how many seats do they need? How do they need to open up another section, or do they need to move the classroom into a bigger classroom and allow more students to jump in there? But yeah, I think they're pretty good at it. But again, I don't want to speak for every department because it could be different.
A couple good admission related questions. Is it possible to submit additional supplements after submitting an application? You are always welcome to reach out to your admission counselor and you can check in with them and see if there's anything that you want to add to your file. Typically, we will not review additional supplements if they're not related to your major. If you feel like there's something that is vital to who you are and you'd like us to have it, by all means, please feel free to reach out to us and we can kind of review that on a case by case basis. But for the most part, we usually will just stick to that required material based on the major that you've applied for. And then asking if there's a music major for film composition. We do have a music composition major and we have a film scoring minor. So both kind of related to that area. So yes, basically. Um, and then is a semester study abroad still possible for an undeclared major? James, I'll let you chat about this one.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, yeah. It's again, I think it always goes back to what you end up finally declaring, right? Again, it's um some of the, like I said, the STEM majors and some of the performing majors, like those are really like those 70, 80 credit majors. But again, like our most popular major, business, is 60. It's kind of on the bigger side, and those students regularly study abroad. So, the idea of not having enough time, right? Every student needs 120 credits to graduate. That's a lot of it's a lot of classes, a lot of time to kind of figure things out. Like it's so funny. We're right now we're doing registration right now, and we'll get first year freshmen coming in. They're like, oh, they're asking all these questions about like, oh, am I going to graduate on time? And it's like you've only been here for a few months. Like you have so much. You have 3.5 years. You have plenty of time, right? Again, sometimes that doesn't always be the case on some of the heavier majors. But yeah, I think there's always opportunities, and the idea of studying abroad too is you should be able to find some major courses when you do study abroad, so that'll make it a little bit easier as well. So again, and sometimes that depends on where you go study abroad. Sometimes students are looking for major requirements. Like if it is a business classes, it has to be an accredited business school, right? When I was talking to a student the other day, they wanted to do the semester at sea program that's not done through Chapman, it's done through another school. And then, okay, well, that's not an accredited school and we don't, accept those credits as ours and things like that. So it kind of gets, those situations can kind of be tricky. But again, I think overwhelmingly the bigger topic is, yeah, it's very possible. And I don't see why it would stop you from being able to study abroad.
Awesome. Well, it looks like that's all of the questions. I will give everyone kind of a last call for questions if you have any that have come up. Um, but otherwise, thank you guys so much for being here. I hope this was educational and that this kind of gave you hopefully a sense of security about being undeclared, helped you kind of figure out what that will look like for you or your student. We are always available. So if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to us. So please don't hesitate. Thank you guys so much.